Next news. Breaking news from the White House.
Imagine walking into your local grocery store only to find the doors locked because radical regulations force the owner to replace every refrigerator at a cost of over $1 million per location. That nightmare was real under the previous administration's rush rules on refrigerants and air conditioners. Well, President Trump just ended it all. He stood at the White House with independent grocers from across the country and declared the costly mandates finished. Americans were paying more at the checkout and facing unreliable equipment that broke even faster. How many small businesses almost went under before this correction happened? That's the question. See, this rollback protects the backbone of American communities. Independent grocery stores serve rural counties and neighborhoods where big chains won't go. Forcing them to swap out working equipment meant higher prices on milk, produce, and medicine because those costs always get passed to families. It also hit homeowners through more expensive air conditioning units that would fail sooner. The previous rules created supply shortages and added red tape to semiconductor production, threatening our economic edge. And small business owners, like those standing with President Trump today in the Oval Office, represent real jobs and real savings. Without this action, Americans would continue facing hidden inflation baked into everyday essentials from food to home comfort. This is about whether families keep more money in their pocket or watch regulators dictate higher bills. And while President Trump fights to cut the hidden costs hitting your home and your wallet, there's another way to take control of your daily well-being right where you live. You've probably seen the clip. Joe Rogan sitting with Mel Gibson talking about people close to him who went through serious health struggles and then saw dramatic turnarounds. Rogan brings up red light-based therapies and how they impact the body at a cellular level, and Gibson says it straight. This stuff works. Now, that got my attention because in my own life, I watched something very similar unfold. For a long time, my wife was dealing with constant discomfort and anxiety. It was one of those situations where nothing seemed to help until we tried red light therapy. Now, the difference in her energy and peace was real. It was tangible. Got my wife back. And now you can bring that same science-backed approach into your home to support recovery and better sleep after a long day of fighting rising costs. Visit myredlight.com. Use NNN25 for 25% off individual items or NNN30 for 30% off bundles. Now back to how this regulatory rollback delivers relief straight to your grocery cart and your power bill. See, the real twist here is that President Trump isn't scrapping the original bipartisan refrigerant phase down law from 2020. He's correcting the aggressive enforcement that went too far and too fast under the prior EPA. Now that distinction changes everything for working families and small operators who are staring down impossible deadlines. Here's President Trump discussing how the Biden administration forced companies to adopt specific high-cost refrigerants. Listen.
Under the Biden administration, the so-called technology transition rule, which was crazy, forced companies to adopt specific high-cost refrigerants, massively driving up the price of transporting and storing refrigerants and various goods. Many grocery stores and restaurants had no choice but to replace their refrigerators entirely. They went out of business, half of them. And these costs rose. Americans faced higher grocery prices and reduced access to critical medical supplies. It was a very catastrophic thing that they did. At the same time, this rule also drove up the cost of living by forcing consumers to purchase higher cost residential air conditioning units. They went up very substantially in cost, and also they were going to be obsolete very quickly. It created national security risk by adding additional hurdles to the already complicated process of manufacturing semiconductors. So it was a mess. Likewise, the so-called emissions rule imposed crippling leak repair requirements on virtually all existing large-scale refrigeration systems, hurting consumers and small businesses, making it almost impossible for many small businesses to even buy inferior equipment. And this is all across the country. The higher cost threatened thousands of jobs and was passed on in the form of higher prices and higher taxes. Today's reforms will deliver significant financial relief, saving American families and businesses more than $2.4 billion. Think of that, each year. Thanks to today's reforms, the American people have lower grocery prices, cheaper transportation of goods, lower costs of air conditioning, at no detriment at all to our country. Zero, including environmental detriment. My administration's historic deregulatory agenda has already saved our country an estimated $1.2 trillion. That's been done over a relatively short period of time. 1.2 trillion with a T. We're committed to fixing the and really completely ending Biden's disastrous regulatory policies and delivering financial relief to each and every American, which is what we're doing. This was a tremendous burden, a tremendous cost. These people had to live with it. Not only refrigerants, but a lot more. And it was making the equipment unaffordable. And the actual benefit was nothing. It just made it worse. It made life worse, and it made it worse, and it drove up costs tremendously. So now I'd like to ask Administrator Lee Zeldin, who's absolutely fantastic. He's doing an incredible job. We're proud of you, Lee. Really, the job you're doing is incredible.
So that was the Oval Office earlier today. Trump spelling out how Biden's refrigerant mandates drove up costs and forced store closures nationwide. Zeldin is laying out the exact savings from killing these rules. He posted this, that Trump just announced with President Trump massive action to lower the cost of groceries, safeguard hundreds of thousands of American jobs, and save America over $2.4 billion. The Biden administration was dangerously aggressive in the reckless sprint to phase out reliable refrigerant equipment at grocery stores, restaurants, and homes. Today we ended the terribly flawed Biden HFC rule. He was quote tweeting himself when he was discussing the Biden EPA technology transitions rule phased out certain hydrofluorocarbons in refrigeration, air conditioning, and heat pumps.
We at the Trump administration are heeding the call of alter refrigeration. See, there was a new regulation called the technology transition rule that came out, and they were getting rid of all different kinds of access to refrigerants where costs were going up, supply was going down. It was costing more to be able to fix that system. And alter refrigeration and grocery stores and the semiconductor industry and residents all across America were speaking about the impacts of this rule. So once again, here we are every day, another decision, another dollar, another moment, another opportunity to fight for you. We're here to announce that in the coming days, we will be releasing a proposal that will fix this mistake of the technology transition rule. We will deliver on what alter refrigeration has been asking for and demanding from this federal government, and we will deliver for Georgians who are tired of being sick and tired of people who aren't representing them.
Lee Zeldin laying it out there pretty clearly, announcing the end of Biden's HFC rule and the billions in relief coming to families. And now independent grocers explain what those mandates would have done to their bottom lines. The refrigerator story that everyone missed. Trump rolled back the Biden EPA refrigerant rule today at the White House. Executives from Kroger, Piggly Wiggly, Food Fresh, and Fairway stood behind him. Piggly Wiggly owner Kevin McDaniel said the rule went further than swapping refrigerants. He said it required equipment changes that would have cost independent grocers. The sequence, 2020, Trump signs the bipartisan AIM Act. 85% HFCs phased down by 2036. 2023, Biden EPA finalizes the implementing rule. 2024, Biden EPA adds leak and reclamation requirements. 2026, Trump EPA extends deadlines and revises. Both parties agreed on the phase down. 17 Republican senators co-sponsored the AIM Act, and Trump signed it. The fight isn't the law, it's which version of the EPA writes the rules under it and how much small businesses pay to comply. So here is the Piggly Wiggly owner, I believe.
We operate 14 Piggly Wiggly stores in North Florida, Alabama, and Georgia. On behalf of NGA, the Piggly Wiggly family, which has about 250 stores in the Southeast, we want to thank President Trump for rolling this terrible Biden legislation back, because without it, there would have been a lot of independents out of business. And what people don't realize is it's just not a refrigerant change. It was a equipment change. And those equipment per store, you take a store, our stores run from 25 to 50,000 square feet. You could look for $800,000 to $1.5 million per store to do a change out. That would have
And
done.
the new equipment would not be as good as the old equipment.
No, absolutely not.
It would be inferior equipment because you weren't able to use a refrigerant.
It was thrown together too fast. The technology's not there yet. It's just way too fast. That's the problem. Good idea, but it's terrible. So you would have had all these independents go out of business. You'd had the independents out of business, and you would have seen grocery prices soar. That's what would have happened if this would have went through. President Trump, thank you very much. On behalf of every independent in the United States, we cannot thank you enough for what you've done for us. Thank you so much.
So the Piggly Wiggly owner showing how the equipment swaps would have wiped out independent stores. Another grocer from Georgia is now explaining the choice that he faced.
I have a single store, Food Fresh, in Claxton, Georgia, and exactly, to echo everyone up here, these refrigeration costs, I'm the only store in a county of 10,000. I literally 2 years ago put in equipment that should have about 20 more years of useful life, and to replace literally every single piece of equipment in our store would have been unbelievably cost prohibitive, driving up costs as we fight every day to try to keep them as low as we can. And, if that cost gets too high, especially attached to a regulation, do you have independent stores close in neighborhoods that once I go away, you've created a food desert? It's very beneficial that this happened today. It's much more complicated than anyone thinks, and to try to rush this through was just the wrong way to go. So we're very appreciative of you today.
Thank you.
So the Georgia store owner made clear the rule would have created food deserts and higher prices. The move is set to deliver over $2 billion a year back to American families. President Trump terminating Biden's ridiculous refrigerator and air conditioner regulations, saving over $2 billion a year. No more forced expensive weak green appliances that jack up your electric bill and break faster.
Today is my honor to be discussing the taking of a very historic action to substantially lower costs for consumers, protect hundreds of thousands of jobs, and save Americans well over $2 billion a year by officially terminating the Biden administration's ridiculous regulations imposing costly requirements on refrigerators and air conditioners. It's ridiculous, unnecessary, and costly, and actually makes the machinery worse.
So what this really means for America is a direct blow against overregulation that was pricing regular people out of basic necessities. By terminating these Biden-era mandates, the Trump administration is shielding hundreds of thousands of jobs and returning over $2 billion a year to consumers. Independent grocers like the Piggly Wiggly owner and the operator from Georgia can now keep their doors open and prices stable. This victory shows that real leadership listens to the people running businesses instead of imposing unworkable timelines that destroy equipment and livelihoods alike. See, President Trump keeps his promises by putting American workers and families first, and this move proves regulations do not have to crush small businesses or inflate your costs. So share this report with friends who need to hear some good news, and comment below with your thoughts on which regulation should fall next. And text the words raw feed to that secret number on the screen. Take a look. You see it right there, 844-840-4963. That's how thousands of patriots are bypassing the YouTube algorithm's suppression of our work, and they're getting direct notifications from me on their phone. I want you to get them too. And make sure you check out the Next News merch shelf below this video. You now have the power to demand accountability from every agency and keep winning these battles for a stronger, more affordable America.
The system controls information. Information control is power.
They don't want you to see this.
The truth only survives together. They don't want this shared. Share this now.